So I recently had this weird moment where I realized that all of the YouTubers who had some kind of influence on me coming to Mexico had left. And then I got this crazy Facebook message from my neighbor. There were 2 Canadians that lived in the building that I lived in. I got one from one of them who was like, hey, do you know if the landlord's gonna give back our damage deposit? And I was like, I don't think so, let's talk about it. And he told me the craziest stories of what he experienced here. And the other Canadian person ended up leaving. I'm the last one left in this little town. What is going on? And what happened to all the YouTube expats who left Mexico? Let's get into it.
Living there costs more and more each month. We had to move out of our house in Querétaro, Mexico, and as we looked at our options, we could see that we would need to spend more money to have the same standard of living.
And I have to be honest that living in Mexico no longer feels like my dream life.
I thought that I would be freezing, but I'm not really.
I'm a Canadian that moved out of Canada, moved to Mexico, lived there for 2 years, and now I'm in Thailand.
Hey, I'm in beautiful Costa Rica. I've spent some time in the jungle, like enjoying jungle life, like hanging out with the monkeys and outdoor showers. But now I'm in San Jose, Costa Rica.
I'm not gonna lie, I am adjusting to the cold, but it still is kind of like, I have to go outside, it's so cold.
I'm realizing that because I didn't come here looking to save a buck, I really don't have any good reason for being here because half of what I thought I would find here is not here. So I'm going home. I have a new plan where I'm going to find a place in Baltimore and I'm just going to travel the world more often. Overall, there's a culture here where people really lean into their lack. I think a lot of expats do come here because they want to save money. They don't challenge their concept of money, nor notice how their beliefs about money are tied into childhood experiences and they can be changed at any time so that they can generate more wealth.
So for those of you who don't know me, hi, I'm Adele. I'm a lifelong entrepreneur. And about 2 years ago, I took my online business and I left a very bad situation I had got myself in during the pandemic. I know that the pandemic has caused many of us to leave marriages, leave jobs, and change our entire lives up. And for me, I always knew that I wanted to live in a hot country one day. I would always find myself leaving during winter, going and living in the desert, wearing no clothes for weeks on end. I mean, I put this on for you guys today, but you can't see what it looks like below, okay? I love the sun, blessing every cell of my body every day for free. And this country has done so much for me since I moved here. I have changed exponentially in so many ways. But there are a lot of things that these smiling Western YouTubers eating tacos, wearing sombreros, and taking pics of themselves with their laptops on the beach are not telling you. And I'm going to talk about that with you here today. And then I'm also going to talk about some lesser known things that people are not really talking about and you wouldn't really know unless you had lived here for a while. You can't just come and visit and feel like you're gonna get it. You have to have lived here. Becoming friends with the locals, learning the way of life, learning a lot of deep things about the history and the culture from some of the most brilliant minds I've met has given me a completely different understanding. And we're gonna talk about that today. All right, so the exchange rate, the US dollar exchange rate. Oh my God. Most don't like to admit it, but one of the main reasons Western people like to come to Mexico is because the dollar historically has gone very, very far here. I mean, you can rent a mansion if you want to for less than the cost of a studio in a major city in Canada. The place I'm renting now is a 2-bedroom. It's perfectly located. I've got beautiful trees. I've got a large veranda. There's a squirrel that lives in the tree and chews on nuts every day. I've got these tropical birds outside my window, including hummingbirds. I've got an oven, which is a rarity here, and I pay about $300 for this. So I think some people are nervous. We don't know how low the dollar is going to go. Not only that, but the grandmas here You know, the people who used to just rent their apartments and their houses for $100, $50, they're wising up to all the people coming here and they're charging more money. Now, myself, I think this is great. You know, I think when you come into the wild west of any industry, it starts out really, really great for the entrepreneurs, the enterprising people, and then, you know, eventually people catch on and they start imposing regulations and the prices start to go up. So I still think we're a little bit in the wild west of rental prices in Mexico. See if you can sign your contract in USD instead of pesos and just enjoy life, because we don't know how much longer any of us have here on this planet. This is all a game. We all came here to experience what it's like to have a body, what it's like to have contrast. So for the people who were just coming here because they wanted to save as much money as possible or spend as little amount of money as possible, that idea is it's not as appealing in that regard, and people are making other decisions. Okay, the next reason, stricter regulations. It used to be very easy for people to come here and do the 6-month visa, then leave and come back, and just keep doing that for years. I've also met a number of expats who live here and they've been here for like 10 years. They came in on a tourist visa and they just didn't leave. And they're completely illegal and they don't care and no one ever checks. Now, I know myself, I'm here legally. I went through the process. I got a lawyer. It was extremely stressful and terrifying at times. The whole process I went to get it, that's in my ebook if you want to hear about what happened. Got a 3 a.m. phone call from someone I didn't even know that well. And she's like, I'm in the parking lot with immigration. They said you have to be here in 20 minutes or else and bring the money. What would you have done? But they are kind of cracking down on that as of late. You know, there are people who leave and then they try to come back, and immigration, the border can look and see they've done it multiple times, so they'll only give them 2 weeks. For a while there, people were reporting that they were stopping foreigners and asking to see papers and residency. So I think this is really what made me want to make sure that I had my residency in order. But in the 2 years that I've lived here, I've pretty much never had to show or prove that. Yeah, pretty much never. There was one time when all of that was going on. It was either the airport or the bus station, and there are like different ways you can enter the waiting area, and there was a bored, lazy looking security guard there, and I walked up and he's like, where's your passport, where's your whatever? And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, just a minute. And the truth was that I just didn't want to do it, you know. I have authority issues. Not only that, but I'm lazy and I don't want to go in my purse. So I was just like, oh, and I walked away. I went and did something else. And I just walked in at the other entryway where there was a different bored, lazy security guard who said nothing to me. So if I had actually been illegal, nobody would have known. I do think, and I have experienced, that if you really want to be here and you're supposed to be here, it will work out for you somehow. Or you can just do it the legitimate way, but you can't be poor anymore. Mexico wants proof that you make at least $2,500 of recurring income a month, US dollars, or that you have had $45,000 in your savings account for at least 1 year. Next have been the recent reports of crime, right? We had that big story about those Americans that crossed the border into Tijuana and they ended up getting shot by accident and kidnapped, and some of them died, and it was this big story. Those of us who live here and who have friends here, we looked at it and we're like, this is kind of a weird story. Like now, hopefully after the past couple of years, you are also able to look at the news and what they're reporting and what they're saying and be like, something about this is off, right? And that was definitely how the majority of us were like, okay, this is weird. There's something about this off. Turns out it was, right? Find out later that these people were here to buy drugs, that they had affiliations back in the US. And while it's true that crime is a serious consideration here. Like, you'll find a lot of expats or people come on here and be like, Mexico gets a bad rap. It's not all dangerous. Like, they just tell you on the news, blah, blah, blah. Like, no, it can be really dangerous. You have to be really self-sufficient. You have to have your own way of defending yourself. You want to have, you know, your house, security. You want to avoid having to need outside help, right? And the criminals know that. And I think it's kind of like a state like that in the US now too, right? Where the criminals know they can just walk into a store and steal stuff and walk out and nothing's gonna happen. It's kind of like that here in a lot of ways. My friend told me that they were watching their neighbor's house get burgled in the middle of the night, and they called the police, and I can't remember if she said if they just didn't show up, but they showed up like hours later, right? This is a small town, small city. There's no reason why the police were not available at 2 a.m. To come and attend this. It's just kind of the way things are. I think another main reason is a lot of times people really can't deal with the culture shock and the loneliness. These are things that I went through myself, and they were really intense. They weren't what I thought I would go through because, I've been lonely my whole life. I've been lonely since I was 2 years old. My mother would lock me in the bedroom so she could go to work and leave me in a crib all day. I've kind of lived my life that way, and viewed the world from behind the glass, kind of separated. But I've had these moments in my life where I kind of break through and I feel really connected to the human race, and I meet amazing people, and I feel like I'm part of something. And that happened for me here in Mexico. Part of that was my martial arts family. Part of that was the English speaking group that I started. And part of that was like my neighbors who came together and supported me against my crooked landlord. It's in the ebook. So I've just experienced hospitality, warmth, and feeling of friendship and family here that's different than I've experienced in Canada or anywhere else. It's part of the culture. I know that part of it also is the novelty of me. They're like, oh, a foreigner, an English speaker. So in general, here's what I have to say. In talking to some expats who have lived here for 10 years and longer, some of them are thriving. Some of them, and I've heard this from a few of them actually, who were like 100% gung-ho on Mexico, have changed. And they're like, it's a great place to start out, but if you're a young person, you have ideas, you're growing, you want to go somewhere in life, it's not the end game. And you can start here, but you should move on. And I was really surprised by this. Another person who lived here, who I made friends with online, was co-victims' portraits on Instagram. I'll link her below. I was talking to her. She's like, talk to me about, the environment, the cultural, social, mental, emotional environment in Mexico. And she's like, it's not for me. And when she explained to me why, I was like, I know, I've seen the same thing. I've noticed and felt and observed the same things that she noticed. And she's in India now, and she's having the time of her life. And that's the crazy thing about being a human and being on Earth. There's something that is called the morphic resonance. Now, this is when we have ideas, or we're learning things, or we have experiences. It creates kind of an atmosphere around us, right? This swirling energy that other people can tap into. We learned this in the monkey experiment. Once the scientists taught this monkey how to wash these fruits before eating them so they wouldn't be all sandy, they then observed that the other monkeys on the island started doing it. However, monkeys on a neighboring island that had no access, could not see the other monkeys, also started doing it around the same time. So learning, ideas, emotions, these are part of a field that we can't see, but we can experience, learn from, and that affect our lives. And I feel that there was something in the morphic resonance of Mexico over the past few years that I needed to unlock my karma, to finish some cycles and take me to the next level. So is this where I'm supposed to be forever? I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm open to the idea, but in 2.5 years, I'll have my permanent residency and I can decide, do I want to stay? Do I want to go? I've been meeting so many international people. You know, I was kind of xenophobic and sheltered before. There was lots about the world that I didn't know, honestly. I couldn't imagine living abroad. And now my mind has been open to so many new ideas, potentials, that I have been thinking about places in the world I might like to live. I'm not living in a country with cold and lack of sun for half the year ever again. That's not for me. Like, as you can see, I'm tanning myself except for my face because I don't want to age it. I am enjoying the life. Thanks so much for watching. If you'd like to connect with me on social, the links are below. Note that I don't add men on Instagram. Let me know, what have your experiences been? If you've lived in Mexico, if you're considering coming to Mexico, let me know your questions. I'll answer them for you. Thanks so much for watching. Have a beautiful day. It's hot in this bitch.